And we're live.
Who do you like in the Open?
The Open Championship, or what?
There's only if you say it like that, then you don't know. You don't even let's forget it. There's only one. When you say the Open, there's only one.
That's all that matters.
It's in Britain. It was the first one.
That's the one.
The Open.
It's the most important one.
Now, do we need to talk about the fact that Mr. Wonderful Kevin O'Leary stole that name from the great Paul Orndorff? Can we talk? Is that important enough?
He didn't steal it. He didn't steal it. There's only one Mr. Wonderful, and now he's dead. And I wish Kevin O'Leary was dead, and I wish I was dead. So that's all I can tell you right now. Those are the only things that I can tell you. Kevin O'Leary. Ugh.
Okay. All right. Whatever. It is the Brad and Britt cast. We're glad you're with us here. You want to play pick one of three, or do you have, is this too stupid to talk about? Ready to go.
Let's go. Let's go with your thing. I'm ready for you. Let me pick one of three.
Okay. Number one, I thought a hybrid was a car.
Oh, geez.
Number two, cancel culture at 30,000 feet, or National French Fry Day.
I want to go with cancel culture at 30,000 feet.
Okay. So a guy went nuts on a flight. This is from Dallas to Charlotte. And he got into a little tussle with the flight attendant and bit the flight attendant. Now, of course, as you know, you can't bring weapons on board. But now your teeth are a weapon. So I don't even think you can bring your teeth on board. It's just one after another, right?
Are we really getting a lot of these? I mean, this is bad, right? I'm not just imagining, and there's just like increased coverage. People are being really awful and being incredible assholes. Didn't they cancel alcohol on the Southwest Airlines flights? Didn't they do that recently?
Yeah, well, I want to back up and make sure that everyone understands what you were just saying. Is this just a case of now we're reporting all of these?
Right,
but
right.
It was always happening.
Right.
Once it becomes a thing, then they start putting everyone out there, and you see the same video. Very often, if you see it reported on TV, they'll start to show the stock video of a fight from 4 weeks ago, right, and make it appear as if we understand. So it is a good question, but I think the numbers bear out the fact that there really is more of this. And I would just, we're amateur psychologists here. So
of course,
this is all about people expressing their rights, isn't it?
Yeah. You got a right to be a dickhead on a flight. That's exactly right.
It is your right not to be told you have to wear a mask, even though when you buy your ticket, certainly if you buy it online, there you cannot go past a screen that undoubtedly says these are the things you need to do. And now it isn't just 3 ounces of liquid. It's, you got to abide by the rules. But
So tell me why you think a lot of these things are happening. Is it just that people have been cooped up for a long time and now they've forgotten how to act on flights? Or do you think that what's going on? What's truly going on?
That is so wonderfully charitable.
It's so stupid.
I'm delighted that you would think that would be at any level,
I don't
a
know.
reason or excuse? And the answer is I don't know. I cannot tell you because I don't want to blame everything on Donald Trump
Yeah,
and the
but
way that he has fucked up the mentality of a huge swath of this country. And I don't know whether the people that initiate these kinds of fights and problems on board airliners are all Trump voters. I'm just going to guess that more of them are than aren't. And that's not to say that because you may be a liberal or vote Democratic or you're a progressive or that you're automatically a better behaved person in public. I'm not saying that, but it's just like with vaccinations.
Mhm.
There isn't a discussion anymore as to who, for the most part, is declining to get vaccinated in this country. We know who they are. We know where they live. There is a story today about where we are, North Carolina, and I think it's one county that just stands above all others in sucking. I think it's Bladen. Is it Bladen County?
Bladen County, yeah, that's going to be down east, yeah.
Right. It's a poor county,
Mhm.
and they have a problem, or so the report says, with access. And of course, whatever drugstore is there might be one in the it's got tons of vaccine available, and they've had the clinics recently, and no one shows up anymore. So again, when you're being charitable, when you say these things, I'm going to be the bad guy and say, fuck that. We're beyond that. It isn't a question of, well, people were cooped up, so they have to act out, or people aren't getting vaccinated because it's too hard for them to get vaccinated. No, it just isn't. It's as easy to get vaccinated as it is to go buy a can of Pepsi. Okay, it's just as easy, and it's a lot of the same places even have it. Your local Rite Aid or your local CVS has Pepsi, and it has a vaccine. I mean, I walked into Walmart the other day, the one closest to me, and my God, the sign is as big as it looked like a billboard with King Kong's picture on it saying vaccines available here free at Wall fucking Mart. Okay, so that we're past that, and now it's just plain tribal insanity, thinking, I guess partially that you own the libs if you follow Tucker Carlson and Donald Trump and you don't get vaccinated, that you're proving something to somebody. And like the great warriors of the past, you are willing to die for your cause. Your cause is, I don't know what it is, but okay.
Would you also, now you feel free to smack this one down. Most of the time when we see this stuff, when we see these folks acting up on flights and stuff like that, would you say it's because, for example, and again, this goes back to blaming Trump. For example, on January the 6th, some people did some things. There was a huge insurrection. And for the past 6 months, the people who did those things, they've seen a certain group of people minimize that, make excuses for them and everything else. So some of those people have felt like they don't really have to face consequences for their bad behavior. Now, some of them have been to court, they've had to plead out and stuff like that, but they've also seen some very powerful people in the media. I saw the latest was it a stupid ass Megyn Kelly now is saying that the media has way overhyped and overplayed what happened on January the 6th. The media just went. So do you think that there's a group of people that think, I can act out, do whatever I want to, be an asshole, and I don't really have to face consequences, or I'll have somebody take up for my awful behavior?
I don't think that there's any doubt that this all ties together, where people of a certain mindset don't trust anything. They don't trust the coverage of what happened on January 6th in arrears. They never see, and I know you watch mostly the same news that I do, and you listening or you watching us, you probably watch most of the same news that we do, which is most everything except very much Fox. Okay, would that be a good description of our news diet?
So, pretty much.
Although I occasionally stop there because again, I have to take one for the team every once in a while.
Right.
And and then I move on. But I know it's there, and I know what they're doing, and I see enough of it, and we read enough about it. And we do have a large swath of the country that has not seen over the last several weeks, for instance, that every day or so, the Justice Department releases more video of what happened on January 6th, more of that Game of Thrones, gladiator, end of the world, medieval jousting, beating, intimidating, screaming, spitting at, using lasers. Did you see the one where they tried to blind the cops using lasers? Did you see that little clip? That came and went about a week ago.
It's horrific.
Britt, there are millions of people who have not seen any of that. They don't know that happened. They have been told that this just was a walk in the park.
Absolutely.
It was just a tourism group that had a couple of bad apples, and they're being prosecuted. So what's the problem? Nothing happened that they believe that, Britt. They do not believe that Mike Pence was on the verge of being hanged. They do not believe that Nancy Pelosi was on the verge of being killed. And they don't believe that their own representative, even if they're a Republican, could have been easily killed on that day. And we'll go back to our original blocking and tackling on this, which is, sadly, we needed some sacrifices on that day. We needed some actual members of Congress to get killed. Instead, and that would have kind of been more proof that something bad happened. But instead, what do we have? We have the complete inverse, which is, and this is really accelerated in recent days, that not only is Ashley Babbitt the negative of George Floyd, not just in color, but that it is an equivalent outrage.
Correct.
That must be avenged.
Or it's much worse. She's actually much more of a victim than George Floyd was.
Right.
Way worse. Way worse than George Floyd ever was. There's the Megyn Kelly story. I'm showing it for those of you who are watching. Now, if you're listening on the podcast, Megyn Kelly on the Capitol riot, no question, the media represented as so much worse than it actually was. There's no question about it. For the first time in 200 years, the Capitol was stormed and we were in danger of people being murdered, lawmakers being murdered, and the media overstated that whole thing. Kiss my ass. I'm sorry. I don't understand how you even come to that conclusion logically. There's no way that she can really believe. And again, that gets back to, do you think she really believes that? Or do you think she's trying to get back in the good graces of somebody that would hire her? I don't get it. And almost to an extent, it doesn't even matter. If those lies come out of your mouth, it doesn't really matter what your motivation is. You're making a direct choice.
I'm glad you said that, because the only audition that she would be performing at that moment, by saying what she said, which was not a big deal, way overreported, not that bad, is she wants an entree back into Fox.
I suppose
that's the only thing that she is doing. But she's not the point here. She's just another.
Well, it's a symptom of the problem.
Jumped on she jumped on the train, and one day there will be an accounting for all this, or so I hope. Well, I'm not quite sure anymore. But this morning, you and I and John the Catholic had a little back and forth, and John the Catholic reminded us of the fact that the Ashley Babbitt death has now been elevated to a vaunted status up there with presidential assassinations and things of that sort. And there was no insurrection. So what are you talking about? That is the new storyline. And what I did was, after we got done with our conversation, this is an hour ago, you can do it now if you want, I just Googled the name Ashley Babbitt. Nothing, no qualifiers, no, just the name, just the name. And the story that comes up on Google News, the first story that comes up on Google is a story that was from January 7th. And the headline is, this is from the day after, Ashley Babbitt, woman killed in Capitol riots, described as patriot who loved America with all her heart. And this is a Fox News story. This is on their site. The Air Force veteran, small business owner, and devout Trump supporter was shot dead storming the Capitol on Wednesday. All right, so this is the day after. But my question is, I thought Google censored conservative media, conservative views, conservative sites, or pushed them to the bottom, or it was unfair. Not only do they not do that, certainly in this case, but they put this piece of shit, outdated trash at the top of the search engine.
Well, let me
for her
explain
name.
something.
How could that be today, Britt? How could that be? There's no other news about her? Holy shit.
Let me explain something to you. What happens is and this is part of what they do. This is what people who are right-wing folks do. They use search engine optimization tools to push that story to the top. And that's how media savvy and web savvy these assholes are. They're even fooling the Google people that is the first thing that you would see when you search it. So they have people, the idiots who are on Reddit pushing bullshit, they've been able to shove that up using search engine optimization stuff. So they're very smart in what they're doing. They're capable of doing that. And Google hasn't caught that. As much as they're being fucked over by Facebook, Twitter, and Alphabet, Brad. As much as these people are being censored, they're able to get their bullshit out and put it in your face first. So that's again part of their narrative, and it's part of the nonsense that's going on. I thought a hybrid was a car. Story number 2.
Yeah, I've told you, certainly, off the podcast, that I was looking at cars, looking at the hybrids, looking at the Hyundais and the Hondas and the rest of them. And it turns out right now that the big problem with hybrids in North Carolina is this combination of a wolf and a German Shepherd. They're hybrid dogs. Have you seen this shit?
I don't know this thing. Tell me the story.
Here we go. Wolf German Shepherd hybrids loose in Orange County. That's not that far away from us, Britt.
No, it's not.
They escaped. From their enclosure. They grabbed 8 of them, but 4 are still out there. We just got done with this snake last week from Raleigh. Now we've got these freakazoid half man, half wolf, whatever the fuck they are, wolves and German Shepherds, which, by the way, just on their own, each of them could be trouble. Oh my God, what the hell is going on here?
We got to use the wolf hybrid dog thing to go hunt down the snakes, and we can. I think we all win in that situation. Whoever let nature win out on that one, that's for sure. Yeah. Or we turn the wolf hybrids loose on the plains against the people who are acting like assholes. We can do that. I think that would be also a thing we could do, right? Yeah. National French Fry Day. Story number 3 on your hit parade.
Okay. Let's see. Here's where you can get some deals on French fries today. Hey, how about this? At McDonald's, you get free fries by downloading their app. Well, don't do that, because then they've sunk their teeth into you, and you'll spend more. Right.
It's over.
Yeah. And they allow you to add a medium fries to your cart for free if you order other. Oh, that sucks. All right. Hardee's.
Aren't you on board with saying that McDonald's has always had the best fries of any of the fast food chains? I think their fries, you can criticize a lot of things about McDonald's, but I think their fries have always been superior over Burger King or anybody else.
Well, remember, what was it, about 10 years ago when they changed what they cooked them in?
Yeah.
They used to just cook them in, oil made from the babies that they kill.
That's correct.
Before they, right.
Yeah. That's when they were delicious.
No. I just remember something that it was called beef tallow. Remember
Beef
that?
tallow, correct.
Whatever the hell that is.
I think it's I think it is the blood of calves and stuff like that. I think they just mix that up with some grease.
Anyway, they obviously figured out how to keep making them the way they do. Wendy's, that free large order fry. Now, see, but isn't it Freedom Friday too?
Oh, now that's not
isn't
fair.
It? That's why I wrote
Freedom
Fry on our little screen in front of us.
That's not fair. Doesn't the guy?
That's when America was great.
Isn't the guy who came up with the Freedom Fry, isn't he dead? Wasn't that Walter Jones Jr. from Eastern North Carolina? I believe that was him. And then eventually he ended up being regretful of that because, of course, that was, you got to remember some of this because it's difficult to remember your 21st century history. The French would not join us in our bullshit war against Iraq. And a lot of people were like, fuck you, France.
Well, first of all, French fries don't come from France. Didn't they come from Belgium?
Belgium, exactly, which was always kind of ignorant. But I believe this happened in the cafeteria at the House of Representatives, and Walter Jones Jr. went, aha, F you son of a bitch. We're going to change them to Freedom Fries. And they did, and it made them feel good. And American jingoism continued onward. And then I believe, there it is. It was created in 2003 in a North Carolina restaurant. Oh, my God. I cannot be more pleased with my state than this. It says here, widely publicized a month later, this is February 2003 when this happened, when the Republican chairman of the Committee on House Administration, Bob Ney, renamed the menu item on 3 congressional cafeterias, Brad. What a great time in American history the early 20th century was, correct? As we approach the 20th marking of the attacks on 9/11, right? Coming up in September, just a couple of months away.
Right. I want to talk about a story. You're probably familiar with it. You may be familiar with it. You may not. But you're familiar with it in another form about some city somewhere in the United States, about the rising crime rates. And, Joe Biden is already talking about it a lot. Democrats are back on their heels over the wonderfully impossible phrase defund the police, trying to get out from underneath that because Republicans think that this is their phrase of the year. This is the equivalent of a government takeover of your health care,
right,
or socialism, or any. And the big headline around here yesterday was murder rate in High Point, North Carolina is up 350% compared to the same time last year, right? January through July of 2021 compared to January through July of 2020. It's up 350% this year over last. So what does that really mean? All right, so we went from 2 murders in 2020 up to 9 right now. And yes, numerically, that is correct. That is 350% higher. 9 is 350% higher than 2. That's not the argument. But of course, the headline, which no one reads beyond the headline usually, they don't want to talk about. That doesn't mean anything. And you're going with the tabloid version of it. And when you read the story and when you listen to the cops speak about this, they say that just about every one of these cases was with people who've never had any connection to crime or with the police before. And then the question becomes, what could you possibly do to stop these things ahead of time if that's what's going to happen? And is this a symptom of, I don't, again, have the answer? These are questions without answers. You got 4 shootings, 2 stabbings, and 3 strangulations or beatings, okay?
And a partridge in a pear. Right. Oh, sorry.
So clearly, strangulation and beating have nothing to do with guns, right?
Mm-hmm.
Stabbing has nothing to do with guns. So we have 4 shootings versus 2, and I don't even know if the 2 in 2020 were both shootings at this time last year. And I'm not trying to minimize this at any level, but I'm trying to get beyond, and this is almost like asking the questions that we did about vaccine deniers. What is actually driving these people? How do you know? What is the actual answer? And I don't know. But one thing I'm pretty sure of, that people who are about to strangle someone, people who are about to stab someone, people who are about to shoot someone, going through their mind, I do not believe is, well, Donald Trump was tough on crime, and now that Joe Biden is in there and members of the squad say, defund the police, you know what? I'm going to take my chance. I'm going to shoot you. I'm going to stab you. I'm going to strangle you because I know nothing will happen to me. I do not think that there is that kind of connection that people make. What say you, sir?
Well, I mean, yeah, if you go with that as your template and you say that, now that Joe Biden is in office, crime reigns supreme, and I'm going to go out and I'm going to strangle somebody, I'm going to shoot somebody, I'm going to rob someplace. If you believe that somehow you've been given carte blanche because Joe Biden is president, but again, the thing that we talked about on January the 6th, I can go to the Capitol, I can riot, and I'll have all of these people making excuses for me. You believe A, but you don't believe B. You see what I'm saying? I don't understand how you make that causation correlation sort of situation. No, of course not. But of course, that's still going to be perpetuated among people who that is like the number one thing that you're going to see between now and the midterms next year is that, oh my God, your family is so much less safe under these Democrats. Now that the Democrats are in charge and they've got the White House and they've got the House and they've got the Senate, it's just become a much more dangerous country. You're more likely to get murdered. Your kids are going to get raped. Your wife's going to have her body parts strewn from here to California. And I think and it doesn't make any sense, Brad. It doesn't. Well, but they're still going to put that out there.
May I just add this bit of truth to everything that you just said, which was all true. Whoever is the president of the United States at any given moment, or whoever is your U.S. senator, or whoever is your U.S. congressman, and help me on this because you're closer to this than I am, they really don't control local policing, do they? They have nothing to do with it. They don't. They really don't.
Although, and again, we try to explain this right now. Joe Biden is trying to get money to local police. There's there's a lot of federal government stuff they're doing. Some of the COVID relief they're trying to shift around to make sure they can pay for cops and stuff for the cops to wear, and all of that stuff is going on right now. But no, there was no meeting on January the 21st. It goes, all right, here at Glenwood Police Department, we don't give a fuck about crime, and we're going to let people shoot each other. All right, everybody, let's be safe out there and make sure you roll. That and that never happened. That never happened anywhere in America. Any sheriff's department, any police department, anywhere. But again, you can't. If we're explaining, we're losing, right? That's all we seem to do is explain to people who don't want to have things explained to them. They're impervious to any sort of facts whatsoever, right?
Yeah. So if we're doing this backwards, we're just eliminating reasons, right? We're eliminating obvious reasons, which are mostly the reasons that will be used in political campaigns.
Exactly.
Trump tried that a year ago, right? A year ago at this time, he was running those commercials, the famous one with the woman trying to call 911, and they put her on hold. They just put her on hold. There are no police to come help. Her house was broken into. And we cast that off. That's just bullshit. That's just not true. But it doesn't matter whether it was true or not. It stuck. It worked with a certain number of people. Now, they may have been predisposed to vote for Trump, and they very well might have voted differently in their elections down ballot, but it stuck. And Democratic politicians all across the country are going to have to figure a way out of this. And, those kind of statistics, that kind of headline, I guarantee you that you are going to see that headline used somewhere else in a commercial.
Sure.
Somewhere else, maybe statewide, maybe nationally, when Republicans who run for office run on law and order and other wedge issues that they think will drive turnout for their people. They will absolutely use that. So just file that one away, or as someone on TV who's really annoying says, stick a pin in it. I won't tell you
who says that? Who says that?
I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say it.
It's dreadful.
Because the next thing you know, I'll be telling you 10 things that annoy me about that person, and I actually like that person, but right. I notice all these little bad habits from the years that we worked in radio, and we had to be conscious of our repetitive bad habits. And
because boy, it was shoved in our faces all the time.
It wasn't even shoved in our faces. You should be aware of it yourself, because they are bad and they're worth noting. But some of these people have migrated to television now, and they can't give it up. They don't even know they're doing it. And I won't tell you who that is.
Here we are.
It would be wrong to talk about someone who's on 9 o'clock every night on a channel
who you like,
who I like,
as opposed to the guy that's on at 9 o'clock who you hate and wish would go away bad. So what is happening here is, and again, it all gets back to Trump. It gets back to January the 6th. This thing you should care about and be scared of. They're smashing windows in San Francisco and shoplifting. That's something. But these people on January the 6th who tried to murder folks and storm, you shouldn't worry about. That's been overplayed. That's not what you think it was. Don't worry about that. Worry about this. And when have the Republicans not used fear to try to get you to vote for them? That's what they've been using my entire lifetime. I know your entire lifetime. That's all that they ever. There's no hope. There's no brightness. It's always. And you remember the Trump commercials. They were the word dystopia became powdered from the heavens, and they would have these dark filters on them and stuff like that, right? About how, America's gotten so bad, and it's especially for you white folks, things are just awful, and they'd have the dramatic orchestral music signifying doom. Remember all of that shit? They would use all of those things, and they try to scare the shit out of you every single time. And the really scary thing was, America during Donald Trump's term. That was the really scary thing, where the orchestral music seemed to be a soundtrack as I walked down the street every day. That's what happened. That's the real deal.
But Britt, what could be worse?
Right?
What could really be worse? Obviously a lot of things, but just for the effect here, what could be worse than you being the president of the United States, and during your period of serving the country, which you really weren't serving the country, you were self-serving. I should call it, Donald Trump was self-serving the country for 4 years.
I would not argue with that. I think that's a great way to put it.
But during that period of time and leading up to it, and now afterwards, you haven't just divided the country along party lines or liberal conservative or wedge issue or critical race. You've divided families.
Of course.
You've divided the part of the country, the ingredient of the United States, that most of us think of first when we think of who do we love? We love our family. But you have done a bang up job in dividing millions and millions of families. It's unforgivable. You ruined Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
You wrecked it. You wrecked it for millions of people.
And this is supposed to be
it may never be the same.
The Republican Party is supposed to be the family party, the ones that give a shit about the family. And here they are clearly breaking, as you talk about, dividing families in some cases, and sometimes irrevocably. I mean, some of these rifts are never going to be repaired, right? It's never going to be the same as it was.
I thought Thanksgiving was ruined when they refused to stop showing the fucking Detroit Lions every Thanksgiving at noon. I thought that was bad enough. Okay,
how dare you?
You have to admit that was bad.
How dare you?
That was bad. and then the stupid Dallas Cowboys at 4:30.
No, that's true. Sometimes
it's just inexcusable.
Sometimes the Cowboys actually do lose, so that's kind of fun.
Right.
Is it too stupid for us to talk about on Fox News right now? Success of Asian Americans debunks critical race theory. Inconvenient minority author says his name is Shu, Kenny Shu. He says Asian Americans are achieving really great stuff, and this really kills the narrative for those of you that think that race means anything in America. This is being touted on Fox News and at foxnews.com. Brad, is this too stupid to talk about?
Yeah, it's too stupid, and here's why. I have not read the story. I know nothing about this guy. I all I can tell is from the headline, and because it's a Fox story, it's what they do. They always find one minority,
exactly,
one guy to spout whatever they think is the white man's party line about any story related to race, and they go with it to prove that anybody that's questioning anything.
I'll give you the quote. Kenny Shu says, if America is still a systemically racist country for minorities, how come they have allowed Asian Americans to overtake whites in education level and socioeconomic status? Asians get higher test scores, Kenny Shu says. The inconvenient minority author says that Asian Americans face plenty of problems, but doesn't buy into critical race theory that systemic racism limits opportunities for all non-white Americans. That is what Kenny Shu is saying, and that is what is being quoted in this article. I think he's ignoring the fact that we've had a lot of, violent attacks against Asian Americans over the past couple of years.
Wait. He say that again, read that again, and emphasize the word that's spelled A-L-L. Go ahead, because I think we have a straw man the size of the Statue of Liberty about to be spoken. Read that again.
If Americans are still a systemically racist country for minorities, how come they have allowed Asian Americans to overtake whites in education level and socioeconomic status? Asians get higher test scores, Shu said. The whole idea of critical race theory, he goes on, is developed by saying, hey, our laws, our society, our structures are inherently stacked against people of color, Kenny Shu says. Asian Americans prove that even in the face of whatever racial narratives you're in, you still can succeed, that this country is the land of opportunity. Let me break this down and put this in other words. You brown people, you black people, you're just not working hard enough. If you would work hard like we Asians are, and maybe you're not smart enough, I don't know. But I'm just saying we're pretty good over here and you guys suck. So look at yourself in the mirror and try to work a little bit harder and be a little smarter. Okay? That's essentially what this guy is saying. And Fox loves that because it's always, if you're not doing well in life, if you're down on your luck, if you're homeless, it's always about you. It's always your fault. You're not working hard enough. You're not doing everything that you can. That's always their narrative, for sure.
I mean, this is just pathetic.
It is.
Nobody ever said that the only people who have a chance to make it in America are white people and everyone else gets fucked because in 1619 slaves arrived on the shore of America.
Right.
And nobody ever said that. And that isn't even critical race theory, whatever the fuck critical race theory is, which nobody really kind of ever can really define it, but okay. I would point you towards the great columnist, and I think he is one of the best, Leonard Pitts.
All right.
He writes out of Philadelphia. His column is syndicated by the Miami Herald. It runs in our local fish wrap a couple of times a week. And Leonard Pitts won a Pulitzer Prize, I don't know how many years ago, 10 or 15 years ago, deservedly so. And he very often writes about racial issues. He's that guy, but damn, he's good at it. Mm-hmm. And he is reasonable and he is logical. And he's the kind of guy that in the local paper every few weeks, That's all he could ever do is write about race. Everything's race with Leonard Pitts. Leonard Pitts. All right. Well, his latest piece begins with this. I, Leonard Pitts, the race guy, the guy who writes about race. I've studied this my whole life. I'm a black guy. I never heard of critical race theory until 6 months ago. Leonard fucking Pitts never knew about it. You know why? Because it wasn't a thing outside of law school. Probably third-year students gave it a minute's worth of study and they moved on. It's not a thing. And it's not being taught in elementary schools. It's not being taught in high schools. You know why? Because it isn't anything specific. There's no syllabus. There's no curriculum. There's no book.
But it's terribly threatening. It's terribly threatening to a bunch of people. It's like the worst possible thing. Let's read a couple. It has become inescapable, of course, Pitts writes. Panicked Republicans marching in the streets under signs demanding stop critical race theory now, while states like Oklahoma, Texas, Florida, and Tennessee rush to pass laws protecting children from its depredations. Nikki Haley believes critical race theory is going to hold back generations of young people. Author Mark Levin says it's about destroying the existing society. Tucker Carlson calls it a poison that will most definitely end civilization as we know it, Brad. At least he's not being histrionic. At least Tucker Carlson's not being dramatic, Brad.
Well, at least Tucker Carlson, he himself and his network aren't more likely to be responsible for the end of civilization as we know it, as opposed to this nebulous idea that is not taught, that was originally thought of by a professor at Harvard in 1976 or whenever the hell it was.
Right.
And it never advanced very far. But this creep who was on Fox about 4, 5, 6 months ago went on Carlson's show and he dug it up and he ran with it and they went hard with it. And here we are. Here we are with parents showing up at school board meetings all across the country, ready for war, hunting bear.
Yeah.
Going to find out who's, oh my God. I don't, and sadly, this shit is going to make its way into town halls, into debates.
Oh yes.
Into all the kinds of things.
You will be asked, Democratic candidate, like in presidential debates, do you support critical race theory? That question will be within the first 5 seconds of any debate with whoever the Republican nominee is, whether it is Tucker Carlson or DeSantis or Trump or Greg Abbott. By the way, is it too stupid?
I know what you're going to answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
Yeah.
Is it at all not possible that, God forbid, 3 years from now, this isn't a topic that we have figured out other things to go nuts over? Or do you think this one is really going to stick? Because
there's no way.
It feels like such a winner for them.
This will be there. Defund the police will be there. That ain't going nowhere. That's going to be a hit record. They're going to play for forever on that shit. Speaking of Greg Abbott says Texas Dems who fled the state will block voting will be arrested, Brad. Is this too stupid for us to talk about?
Well, yes, it's too stupid to talk about, but my first reaction upon hearing the story is, go ahead, make my day. Go ahead, do that. If you want to figure out how to finally turn Texas blue, this could do it. This could do it. Because remember how many, what there's a high percentage of Texas Democrats who are in the legislature there who are Hispanic and who are black.
Thank you.
And
thank you.
The problem in Texas on why it hasn't turned blue is because they've gerrymandered the shit out of that state.
Absolutely.
They divided. I think it's El Paso. Maybe it's Austin and El Paso. All these cities, they've cut those cities up and tried to isolate them on. And still, of course, when you're talking about a mayor's race, everybody's vote is equal. You can't gerrymander a mayor's race, but
No.
The congressional delegation is a bit out of proportion to the total number of votes. But if you want to drive Democratic turnout, not only tell those voters who you've tried to corral and isolate that they have a few more hurdles to get over, that the fact that they were able to do drive-in voting in 2020, which is now being termed by Republicans as a luxury because of the pandemic. We don't need that shit no more. And Greg Abbott, that lying piece of shit, he says he's worried about drive-in voting. Did you hear this? He's worried that there will be other people in the car pressuring you to vote a certain way, and we will not be able to control that. That's like being in a voting booth with someone. He is worried about that.
The optics of having an African American or a Hispanic lawmaker dragged back, arrested to Greg Abbott's Texas plantation, and his ignorance of that optic makes me. I mean, that would be unbelievable. That would be so unreal for him to do it. But it sounds exactly like the kind of shit that he's looking forward to, right? That sounds like the kind of shit that is his jam.
Of course. Now, this is just you and me talking. We could be wrong about this, but I don't think we are.
I don't think so
we
either.
are, and I don't think that the long lens of history will think anything different of Texas Democrats. We talked about this on the last podcast. I said, what are these people made of? They're something special. Yeah. They're and you know what? It's a question of, it's harder to be a Democrat in Texas. You got to want it. Because it's so much easier to not be one these days.
That's correct.
Lyndon Johnson was elected in 1964, and he was a Democrat from Texas.
Yeah.
And then the next presidents from Texas were George Bush and George W. Bush.
Right.
And they were Republicans, and the turn had already been made.
That's correct.
When Johnson signed that civil rights legislation back in 64 and 65, he said right then, well, that's about the end of the Democratic Party going forward for white people. That's about it. I mean, that's in broad strokes. I'm saying that, but he was largely right. He knew what he was doing, but he said, I'm going to do the right thing. And it was the right thing. Of course it was the right thing. But what's happened since then? Republicans, where conservatives moved to, Southern Democrat conservatives became Republicans instantly. But they have resisted not just that legislation, but everything that has come since then that you and I would say is progress. They would say it's progressive bullshit, but it was progress. It's the country not standing still as to where it was when the Constitution was written, that people who weren't white were only 3/5 of a person.
That's right.
We moved past that, but again, as we've discussed, that maybe that's the plan. Maybe that's where they want to go back to. And if there's somebody in the car with you, you're not free to vote on your own. You won't know what you're doing.
Does Greg Abbott know anything about a thing called marriage? Has he ever experienced any of that? I'm just curious.
Right here. All right.
That'll work for us.
That'll work for us. We're glad you were with us today. And you know what? Hey, my plumber didn't call yet.
Look at that. That worked out perfectly. Yeah, it's very good.
That did work out perfectly, because right now it's just me and the dog. Just me and the dog by herself. And the dog didn't bark today?
Oh, the dog's
Did you hear him? Did you hear him make one?
Not one peep. T-Berry's a good fella.
Well, I brought him a pile of little doggy porn magazines. He's thumbing through them all out.
Nothing wrong with that.
He's kind of preoccupied. Yeah.
See ya.